What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? We are back. You thought we were gone? Man, we ain't ever going away. This is take two. We've hit episode 10, magic number 10. At this point, you already know who it is. I'm Nate. That's Liam. And that's Abdullah. Needs no introduction. So, before we dive in, how the boys been? Your brother is back home in Omaha. It's
W.
nice. Back from school. Could not be happier.
So are we saying in person's coming soon?
Ooh, maybe, maybe.
In person
Stay
on the
tuned,
way.
subscribe. But
I've
yeah,
been chilling. I got finals week coming up, and after that, I don't have to worry about anything. But outside of that, chilling.
just chilling. We got Liam McCann, future UNO Maverick,
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
up
sir.
there. Um, man, I'm about to be the only one not in Omaha. It's, it's gonna be, I'm gonna be left
for the
out,
turntables.
outsider
For the
parties.
turntables.
All right, well, it's the summer's just right around the corner. The weather's been nice. Just only a couple tornadoes, but we all survived.
Oh, God,
And
bro.
We
but
Jeez.
had a
no tornado
few.
is gonna stop a Take Two episode. And so I think the first thing we gotta talk about here is the NFL draft. Exciting night. One of my more favorite nights in sports. I love me a good draft. I
Agreed.
love me some
Always a good night.
excitement. I watched it with a couple of my boys up in Minneapolis, at least the first round, and man, there was some excitement in this draft. I will tell you that. So let's just dive right in. Is there anything that needs to be said off the bat about this draft? Initial reactions.
I don't know. Let the Bears fan go first. I was a big Bears
Yeah. Oh
fan.
yeah. That's fair. Liam.
Okay. It's something I've learned over years of being a Bears fan is it's turned me into a bit of a pessimist.
Hmm.
So I'm very cautious to get my hopes up on anything. Um, but
Hmm.
I will say this is the most hope that I've had in a while. I'm setting the bar low. And I can absolutely see a repeat of this year, like a 7-10 season. I can absolutely see that again. Although I am going to say that I think that is their floor. I
Hmm.
think the worst that they do is seven, even six, because unfortunately injuries happen in this league. But
Mm.
I think as a whole, we should see the receiving core improve. The offensive line is continuing to develop. The defense is starting to come together. The question mark, though, is quarterback because rookie quarterbacks are almost never good right away. CJ
Typically, yeah.
Stroud, Andrew Luck are some of the great RG3 are some of the greatest exceptions of our time.
Justin
But
Herbert a little bit too.
Yeah,
I will say, yeah, but rookie seasons quarterbacks have the hardest job out of everybody
it's true.
is because they are learning on the fly. They're figuring out what they need to do to adjust, but they're getting thrown right into the fire. And a lot of these rookie quarterbacks are usually being thrown into pretty tough situations, like Joe Burrow, Bryce Young. I think is,
And
is an obvious answer.
may I add,
Okay,
Michael Penix, he thrown into a very rough
Oh,
situation.
he got screwed. We'll get to that
yeah.
later for sure. But
He might not
But
play ever.
with all that being said, I I am happy with the Bears draft, but the issue is that everyone in the NFC North got better this offseason.
Sure.
So and then like I have no hesitation in saying that that will be the toughest division in football next year. I strongly believe that will be the toughest division in football. Um, the other the NFC West I would say is second, or the AFC North. I could hear out any of those three, but
mhm.
I'm gonna be watching a lot of NFC North football, so I gotta stick with the
like bro, you said it exactly, bro. The NFC North is just turned into one of, if not the toughest division in football, and that sucks because a team like my Vikings, who are not the clear favorites by any means. In fact, they're probably going to finish last. But the thing is yeah, they've had a good offseason. They've gotten better considering what's happened, the departures. And like I have hope. I mean, like I said, like I think the Vikings are going to be around maybe 7, 8 wins. I think our ceiling is like 10, but that's a ceiling. Especially with Sam Darnold your quarterback, and then they'll slowly transition JJ. All of this stuff. The thing is like the Vikings genuinely could have a good season, win 9 games for the standards going into the season, and be 2 games back of third
My
place in the North. So it's like crazy.
Yeah.
my thing with the Vikings is that I don't think you need to compete this year.
No.
Like I really
No.
don't think it would be horrible if you ended up with the top pick next year. Because in my
Fedora
opinion,
Sanders.
in my opinion, I do think that on paper you are probably like the weakest team in the North, but on paper means nothing until they actually play a football game. But I think on defense you're still missing a couple pieces to fully bring that unit together. And I love your offense. The issue is going to be quarterback play. Um,
Oh yeah.
because that can help you a lot, but that can also hurt you a lot.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I honestly don't think like treating this year as a development year and putting like McCarthy, Turner, Paces, Blackman, Scenes developments first, Addison, like put their development first over anything. And like if you, because I really do like that as a young core, and you continue to develop them, then you have like the base of a contender. But right now it's just, and then because you also have to address what to do with Jefferson. That's a completely different
hmm I
discussion.
was just gonna bring that up. I was like, I think right now everyone's mind is on the Jefferson extension. But yeah, I mean, from a Vikings fan standpoint, the Vikings I think had a solid draft. I'm happy with the draft. I think they
I would
addressed their
agree.
needs. I loved the first round. And I mean, yes, we gave up a lot. I think we only have like 3 or something draft picks next year. A little concerning. But I watched the press conference, especially after the first round of our GM Quasi. And I was worried about that, but he put it pretty well. I mean, he was like basically saying, in our eyes, in the front office's eyes, and the coach's staff's eyes, these are guys we really want on our team. These are guys we are eyeing, and these guys that we feel like will make impact from here to the future. Like Liam said, if they develop correctly, this could be a really good, young base in the future. And when you're giving up like fifth rounders, 2025 fourth rounders, like I'm not exactly sure the way he said it, but he said something along the line of like, you know, if you can get a guy like Dallas Turner that has insane potential to be a really good edge rusher, there's going to come a point where you don't really care about that fifth round pick in the future. And and he also said, and there's also ways to get it back. And so I'm not, no one's in panic mode. And I think that, what we were able to do in the first round was worth what we were able to give up. Because, like he said, if these guys live up to their potential and develop right, I don't think Vikings fans are going to be caring too much about that fifth rounder they gave up next year. So, like, for example, so I think I like the draft. I like Will Reichard. Will Reichard might be one of my favorite picks.
Hmm.
Um, because okay, the Vikings have been cursed at the kicking position. It's just their thing. You had the Blair Walsh, and then this last season, Greg Joseph was like very iffy. Will Reichard, NCAA leader in points. I like him. He's an experienced kicker because one thing that is not really that different from NCAA to NFL is kicking. I mean, maybe the pressure is higher, but that's the case all the time. But like, it's the same distance, the same uprights, probably a little bit tamer of crowds. And so like, I mean, and he's if he's le- he's he leads in points. He's just had kick after kick. He's practiced. He's weathered. I think he'll be a great kicker. And I was fine with taking a fifth round, I think, pick on Will Reichard. And he's pretty dang good.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm sure everybody's sick of me talking about the NFL. As of recently, I've had a great time with my team. Um, I guess the biggest takeaway from the draft for me was that like I feel like we addressed what we needed to. I feel like we didn't necessarily need to go get Xavier Worthy and get another wide receiver, but it was something that, wouldn't hurt. And I love that pick. I think that under Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, he's going to thrive and maybe bring back a little bit of the Legion of Zoom, maybe. But I think my focus and my favorite pick of the draft was our second round pick in Kingsley Sumatia.
ooh, underrated.
That dude is massive. Um, if you look at Chiefs football from last year, we had a lot of struggles with our offensive line and penalties. And I feel like bringing in someone that, that large and that fast and that strong, if you can teach them under the way, we can start cracking down on like maybe when Joan Tooney retires, we put him in there. Or, Jawan Taylor forgets to play football again. We put him in there. Like he's just such a he's a weapon that we can utilize very well. And I feel like having that is gonna really help us next year. I feel like we got better than last year, which is scary for the league.
Mhm.
And I'm calling a three-peat already, but
And then like you
overall, I'm
lost.
not.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I wasn't really tuned. I mean, I was tuned into the draft and I was looking at the picks and stuff, but I didn't really have like that much writing onto it as much as you guys. So,
Yeah.
I was, I was content with our draft. I liked it.
It was a very solid draft. I think all three of our teams had pretty good drafts for what they
Yeah,
needed. I want to say for the Chiefs, you lost Snead, and then they took two DBs, very underrated DBs. I feel like that have potential to just explode. And I mean, the amount of, you know, the more young corners you can bring into training camp and try out, and the better because that's more potential in that group. And Snead's a big loss, the very big loss for that really good defense.
and yeah, and then under Spagnuolo, like he might be one of the best. It may be the best defensive coordinator out there, and he made McDuffie and he made Snead. Like those are our draft picks, so it just shows the levels of like what we can do with these young guys. Like we have a great coaching staff that can put them in the position to become great.
For sure. Would we like to address, we already mentioned it earlier, the Michael Penix Jr. pick? I feel like there were very, very mixed reactions. A lot of shock, especially me. And when I was watching it with my friend, we were like, it was just like a real head scratcher. Um, what do we think? What do we think about that pick?
Um, you got a lottery pick and you take a backup. That's
That's
obviously
my thing, bro. Lottery
that's a
pick for a
horrible
backup
mistake. That
quarterback.
was one of the most like, what are you doing?
You could
The
have traded
Falcons
back
just
for him.
they just refuse to be good at football. They refuse.
I their their absolute biggest fix because this Falcon squad, like they have a nice squad brewing in Atlanta. Like offense was not really something you needed to spend your first few picks on. By no means. Like your offensive line is pretty good. Your receiving core, I'm fine with. You have a quarterback under contract for 4 years. You have like a top 10 running back, a top 10 pick, spent on a running back from a year ago. Uh, and when you had one of the worst pass rushes in football a year ago, to me, you think, okay, well maybe they should address that. Apparently not. Apparently we're missing something. Um, and I know that they're trying the Jordan Love experiment, but Jordan Love was 20 years old.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jordan Love was 20 when they drafted him. Michael Penix is 25, will be 25 by the start of the season. That is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably won't see the field until he's 29,
It's like
30.
Lamar Jackson's age almost.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and then and then in the second round, that's when they went D tackle. They needed D tackle, but they reached on a guy that they traded up for that would have been there probably until like early third round with a guy like Johnny Newton who was consensus like 2, 3 D tackle in the class, and just completely like ignored him. And then they took two edge rushers on on with third and fourth round picks.
They're just
Um,
like I said, they refuse to be
Not a
good.
bad, not a good draft for the Falcons.
and it's just like when you get to about the fourth round, when it comes to draft picks, that's when it kind of becomes like you're throwing a dart at a dartboard.
Yeah.
You have an idea of what they could be. You have an idea of what their ceiling is. Very rarely are they going to have a superstar ceiling, though. That is what you get in the first 3 rounds. In 4 through 7, you're looking for quality starters, sometimes stars. I mean, that's
Mhm.
probably the best that you're going to get. And that's when you could have spent a pick on a quarterback. That Spencer Rattler wasn't thinking about the 5th round.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it
I
frustrates me.
I agree with everything that was said because like my take on it is like, yeah, this is your backup quarterback for 4 years because you just paid Kirk a bag. And so if you were so sold on Michael Penix, you're like, he's our guy. Like we love him. His skill set is crazy. If he can develop under Kirk, he's our guy of the future. First
Mhm.
off, his age, his future's not that long. And like second off, if you were just so set on getting Michael Penix and you knew he wasn't going to go past the first round because his stock was rising until draft day, I think that the the Broncos might have taken him at 12 even, considering they took Knicks. I don't know. But
The
like
the Broncos guy all along was actually Bo Nix.
Yeah.
and like that also kind of just proves my point more, which
Well,
is you could have traded back if you were so sold on Penix being your future quarterback. Eight
also, like,
was not
if
the pick
you're
for it.
like you were saying earlier, like with the cut, putting him under Cousins, and he's not like he's old, like he's not gonna have much to improve on. If that's the case, that you want to take a quarterback and it's gonna be Penix, then why do you sign Kirk Cousins to that big of a deal? Like, why do you like? I feel like if I'm gonna sign a quarterback to that big of a deal for that much money in that many years, I'm gonna look elsewhere because you that's that's starting quarterback money. That's not like transition
Mhm.
quarterback.
That's a good
So
point.
I just don't understand what the thought process was there.
Hmm.
And and the thing was like the Vikings, in my opinion, were never going to take anyone other than JJ McCarthy. Like I truly
Yeah,
believe that JJ was a guy that they had their eyes on. Um, Denver made it clear that Bo Nix was their guy. The only team in the top 15 that like had any rumors surrounding Michael Penix was the Raiders. And you could have traded back within that. That's a difference of 5 picks.
Mhm.
Like you easily could have traded back. Like I have no doubts that the Jets would have
exactly.
traded up. The Vikings might have traded up to get McCarthy earlier. Who knows?
Glad we
But
didn't.
yeah, yeah,
I
it's
just
so
feel bad.
insane.
I just feel bad because it's kind of ruining the kid's career.
Yeah, like I
Absolutely.
love Michael Penix. He's
He
such
I
a
mean,
talented guy, but he
he
is
could have
when
gone
he
anywhere and
yeah.
started right away.
Yeah, I think Michael Penix Jr. is plug and play uh level right now. I think with his college experience, of course a lot of it was injured, but with his college experience and you know, his insane skill set, including his accuracy and deep ball and stuff like that. And like we said, his age, like he is a starter now. I think he's starter quality. I was really expecting the Raiders to take him if
I
he
was
hadn't
too.
gotten picked today. Like, because that's a good fit right there. That's a good fit, especially like and then he's throwing to Devontae Adams. Like, that's a good situation. But like, I just feel so bad for the guy because I had a little soft spot for Washington all year with for obvious reasons. But I just grew to love Michael Penix, and I just was always so high on him. I think he's top 10 pick talent worthy, but just
Yeah,
not the Falcons. Like that's a bad spot for him.
it's not even his fault, man. I just can't believe.
Yeah,
Like, it's really unfortunate.
it's unfortunate. Speaking of, busts and unfortunate picks, what do we think were some of the more underrated picks of the draft? Some steals, some highlights now that we've talked about a low light.
I think Adonai Mitchell falling
Oh my
to
God, that's
52 in the second round.
Mhm.
I understand that teams are high on Xavier Worthy, and I don't disagree. But Adonai Mitchell is a very solid prospect. Like easily could have gone around Xavier Worthy range. Like easily could have gone like 31 instead of Pearsall or 32 like Leggett. But character concerns allowed him to slide. I suppose. But the thing is, I mean, if you're a team who wants to contend, and the area that he would have gone, it would have been mostly contending teams, like Kansas City, Dallas, Baltimore, San Francisco, and Buffalo. They traded back a couple times, but they're in that range too. Like
Yeah.
those are probably some of your best teams in the league. And you can slap contender on the Chiefs for sure, and maybe the Ravens, maybe the Niners, but like he was gonna go to a contender or should have gone to a contender. And if I'm a contending team, I don't care about character concerns.
Exactly.
Mhm.
I want to win now. And if he's going to help me win right now, then that just feels like the obvious pick.
Mhm.
Aaron Rodgers had fucking character concerns, and that's why he
Still
fell.
does.
Yeah, and he won a ring. He won a ring. He won several MVPs.
He's one
one
of
of
the
the
best
best.
quarterbacks. Yeah.
Yeah, like is character now? If it's that bad, then yeah. But we're probably not going to see like a Ryan Leaf or Jamarcus Russell character issue concern again.
Yeah.
And if it is, it'll be obvious. But it was not that at all.
I
Not that severe
really thought
whatsoever.
really thought Buffalo was gonna stay and take him at 28 or
Yeah.
whatever. I think it was 28, but like I was a little confused by Buffalo trading back because I was like, yo, AD Mitchell's there, and then they traded back again, and I'm like, okay, do they hate Josh Allen? And
Yeah.
AD Mitchell was still there. I like Keon Coleman, but like I don't know.
I will say,
Um. So for me, I think the Steeler draft for me, honestly, it's also a shocker, but it's Troy Franklin going all the way down to the fourth round.
I
That's
agree.
true. That's true.
I
He's
mean, he wasn't
nice.
necessarily first round, but I thought he was second or third round talent.
Yeah.
And a shocker for me though is that Luke McCaffrey was drafted before him. What
Luke
and
And
why?
McCaffrey.
I don't see the vision that they saw, but I think to steal the draft because Trey Franklin's going to the Broncos. He's going to play with Bo Nix again, and I'm not going to say Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. That's an exception, but like playing with your college teammates and having that type of connection, especially a court QB one and a wide receiver one,
oh yeah,
that's
that's
something that's
true.
going to be. I think that's going to be a pretty good duo, and I just can't believe that. I have I just didn't really look much into it, but
Hmm.
can you explain to me why he would drop that for?
Troy Franklin.
Yeah,
Well, okay. When we see players drop that far, like for example, Will Levis, I will use
yeah,
from a year ago. Typically, that means teams know something that we don't.
okay,
Executives know something that we don't, and sometimes that can be an injury concern. Maybe he didn't pass the physical. Maybe it's like character concerns that were that severe that would cause him to drop that far. Maybe they just were so unimpressed by his combine performance that they're just like, okay, we can find that elsewhere. What my understanding though is that once a prospect who is supposed to go in a certain range, like for again, Will Levis, like probably supposed to go or projected to go 5 to 15. Once he gets out of that range, other teams are going to be like, okay, well, then there's probably something wrong with him.
yeah.
So we're going to take someone that we're confident in, and it's effectively just scaring teams away from prospects.
Hmm.
So, and I will say they probably know more than us. So Troy Franklin could very easily end up being nothing in the NFL. But I was
Yeah.
of the opinion he should have gone earlier. We will see, I suppose.
I I love the Bo Nix Troy Franklin matchup in Denver. That's huge. Maybe Denver was pulling a bit of that. I don't know. You make a very good point. My steal of the draft, like there was a lot of um there was a lot of like very, very late picks that, players that dropped. And like one thing like this class is like this was a really good receiver class, so deep receiver class, and so you're gonna have some guys that slip naturally. But honestly, my steal of the draft was all the cornerbacks that went so late. Like obviously this was clearly an offensive heavy draft. We know that. Look at the first 14 picks. But like there were some pretty high potential corners this year. Quinyon Mitchell, Nate Wiggins, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold. They didn't go till what? Pick 22, 24. Oh, 22 to the Eagles, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so like when I was watching the draft, I was with two friends. One of my friends is a Vikings fan with me, and then the other one was one of his buddies who's a Packers fan. I don't know why he was invited, but um the thing was is the Packers, he was like, "Oh, corner, corner, corner." A lot of Packers fans were like, "We need some secondary corner."
Yeah.
And so, and then when it kept approaching the Packers pick and all of these excellent corners were still on the board, I was like, they're really gonna have their pick at like three of the top guys. They went offensive tackle, and I was like, oh, that's hilarious. But
Yeah.
even into the second round, they still had an opportunity to get a pick at some of those top guys. And so like I think a lot of the corners this draft, the Eagles specifically getting Quinyon Mitchell at 22 and Cooper DeJean later, those were some good pickups. The Eagles somehow always have stars fall to them. They have in the last few drafts. They've always had some underrated pick, and so I think that those are some of the more underrated picks of the draft because, like you said,
To
not a good defensive draft, but man,
to
they
to
fell.
touch on your Packers point, something that I have found over the past few years, and I do think that the Packers are one of the better drafting teams in the NFL because they don't spend a lot of money in free
Oh,
agency, and like their success is because of their draft history. Something I've noticed though, they're not very good at drafting in the first round. They I mean, going back to 2019, they had two first round picks, and Rashawn Gary they took at 12, and who now is absolutely worth that pick. That I will give them that. They just gave him a massive extension, but I'm still not concerned. Like he might have been the right fit for them, but I don't know if he was worth the 12th overall pick. And then their second draft pick in that round was Darnell Savage. He's not even on the team anymore. 2020, Jordan Love, another player they should not have taken in the first round. That worked out. I can live with that with them. 2021, Eric Stokes, nothing. Genuinely amount. He's played 28 games in 3 years. 2022, there was Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt. They hit on Quay Walker, missed not pretty badly, but they missed on Devontae Wyatt. And then a year ago, they took Lucas Van Ness, um, who is fine, could be good at some point, but I mean, they, and it pains me because I wish they could be that bad completely
Yeah.
in every round. But unfortunately, they have been very good at finding
you know,
players.
Liam's passionate about it when he just dissed an Iowa player.
I love
Yeah.
Lucas Van Ness. I love Lucas Van Ness, but him going in the first round shocked me. It
Yeah.
really did. Because the only reason that he did was because of athleticism, not because of production. Because he was good at Iowa, but he didn't really produce like that.
See, and even DeJean went in the second round. Like,
Now I think that Gene should have been a first round pick. Of the
Me
two,
too.
yeah,
I think
out of the two, yeah.
It's kind of crazy. And like Liam said, with all these things we talk about with people falling or whatever, um, it could be that we don't know something. It could be some other factors. Very well could be. And the truth is that a lot of this, like we also said, is on paper. And this is the draft. And now when what we are talking about right now is pure potential. These guys that were like, oh, this corner fell to the third round. What the heck? They could suck. They genuinely could suck. But, you know, generally the scouting gets better and, as play as NFL like these mock drafts and these analysis oh my God, of these players continue to improve as we learn more. I mean, first round talent is becoming more first round talent, and we're seeing that year in, year out. And so who knows? Who knows what will happen? This is a draft. This is the beginning of these players' careers. If Brock Purdy and Tom Brady can be very good quarterbacks out of the later rounds. Who cares what pick they went? It's all about development and it's all about coaching. So unless we got anything else to say, I think we're gonna move on to who is ballin'. We'll be right back.
Who is Ballin?
Who's balling? We don't have that much to choose from, but we do have NBA playoffs to choose from. And tis the season, this is I say that a lot for everything. There was March Madness, that was the tis the season, playoffs, NFL. But there's something else about NBA basketball that brings the best out of players. And we've already seen that so far through the first round, as it is continuing on. And so we just want to shine some light on some of those players, maybe some players from baseball, hockey. But my player is in the NBA. He's also on the Knicks. You can't. I think everybody knows what we're going to be talking about. It's the back-to-back 40-ball playoff performer. He's averaging the most points in the playoffs currently with 34.9 points per game. And that's my king, Jalen Brunson. We couldn't get it done last night against the Sixers with the crazy, Tyrese Maxey, who could have easily been a pick. But, Brunson is fueling this Knicks team. He's giving us grit that we haven't seen in forever. We usually have to wait for Julius Randle to randomly have that type of game. We haven't had a player since Melo to be this consistent on a daily basis, putting up these points. And he's leading us. We should be in the next round right now. But, we'll just wait until tomorrow, But I just have to shine light, 34.4 points per game, leading the whole entire playoffs so far. He's doing that on a 41.9% from field goal. That's insane, efficiency. There's not much I can say else except that he's balling.
He is balling. Well, I'm gonna stay in the NBA. Unoriginal, I know, but it's the main event right now. It's what's happening. It's getting all the attention, and it's the playoffs, and so it's bringing out the best in a lot of players. And so Brunson is cooking. There's a lot of players who are cooking, scoring the same amount of games. Luka Doncic just had a 35 and 10 game double-double. His teammate Kyrie had near 50 the other night. Like, these players are up here putting up absolute, just insane number of games.
Masterclasses.
Exactly, masterclasses. And a lot of these guys are the primary options of their team. So they're the guys being asked to step up, and that's 100%. I'm going to shine the light on a player who maybe is not the main guy in their team. They're not a role player now. Well, they're not. But the thing is that they're, because of that, maybe not because they're not the first option on offense or whatever. They're not putting up absolute cannonball of games, but their impact, their IQ, and just their playoff senses are making a noticeable difference in their series. And so, my player of who is ballin' is the father of the Lakers, Mr. Jamal Murray. Mr. Jamal Murray, who, up until last year's playoffs had a lot of injuries, missed some playoffs games, and he kind of just faded out. And then last year happened, and he was one of the most important things to leading the Knicks, the Knicks, the Nuggets to the championship. No, I don't know about that. And then in this series against the Lakers, where a lot of people picked the Lakers, the Nuggets and Jamal Murray really just showed them why they're the defending champs. Now, Jamal Murray, like I said, maybe didn't average 40 bombs a game. He averaged 23.6 points per game, which is what gives. His impact and his clutchness is what gives him this honor. Jamal Murray, his impact throughout the entire game, both offensively and defensively, cannot be ignored. He's the clear number 2 on that Nuggets team, and he deserves all the flowers in the world. He had not one but 2 game winners, and in a series where they were trailing most of the time, he and Jokic's clutch genes and championship DNA just carried them to victories in 4 out of the 5 games. Jamal Murray, even though he didn't have to average 35 to ball, and that man was balling.
It makes you wonder, maybe he had another video leak or something.
Ooh, he's playing like it. He's playing like it. He is playing like it. Liam?
All right, I will take us to the MLB, as I do. That's my thing. We're going to go up to a little town. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Minneapolis.
Oh, never heard of it.
Yeah, it's smaller. But the Minnesota Twins, in their past 10 games, can you guess the record?
I don't hear it.
They are 10-0 in their last 10 games. And to be honest with you, that does not happen in baseball. You don't win 10 games in a row. And their record right now is 17-13. So 10 games ago, they were 7-13, and they were one of the worst teams in their division. They were one of the worst teams in their league. They were one of the worst teams in baseball. But they have caught fire. They are a year off of winning their first playoff game in 2 decades. Keep in mind, they had been to the playoffs 5 times prior to that series in the past 2 decades, got swept in every series. I think they're going to build on it this year. 10 wins is a good way to start that off, and the offense has found their footing, finally. So I guess never thought I'd hear myself say this, but watch out for the Twins. Sorry, Abdullah. But to put in perspective, they've won 10 in a row and they're still in 4th place in the AL Central. The AL Central.
Second. Tell me who's second.
Anyway, the AL Central is one of the toughest divisions in baseball, which again, never would have thought I would say that. I don't think Abdullah would have expected to say that either. I'm here for it. I love good competitive baseball. It'll be fun to see who comes out on top of that division.
It's just like the NFC North. You never thought that in the modern day you'd say that's one of the best divisions in all of the sport, but here we are.
And this man is going to take us to the top.
Who isn't that?
King Bobby.
Oh, Bobby Witt. You see, I know no baseball, so I'm just gonna trust Liam on this one. Well, there you have it. The return of who's ballin'. There's been a lot of people balling since our last episode, but in terms of recently, those are the guys who are recently balling, and they're going to continue to ball. And especially players like Jamal Murray and Jalen Brunson, who are likely headed to the second round of the NBA playoffs. Speaking of the NBA playoffs, let's talk a little more about that.
Now, this is the segment I know Abdullah was waiting for. Yeah, there's a little something he wants to talk about. We'll get to that later. I'm not name rhymes with Ballin Brunson, but
I ain't brought my jersey down. Here, hold on. Y'all keep talking. I'll be right back.
We're gonna touch on
fitted up. He's about to get fitted up
on the NBA playoffs. Like a thing that I have never really been super interested in, but I will admit I've been paying a lot of attention. Obviously my team has a lot of expectations on it, the Celtics, and I expect them to crumble probably in the conference finals. Maybe we'll get a rare finals crumbling thing, but other than that, Abdullah, let's start it off with, other than we can assume that your Knicks are the favorite to make it out of the East. Who do you think makes it out of the West?
You know what? I'm going to actually say your Celtics are probably the favorite.
Oh, okay.
The Knicks are my favorite in my heart, but we're not battle tested as of late. The Celtics are. They just beat their kryptonite in the Heat, and I think it gets easier from there. They got the Cavs and the Magic, and I think the Heat were more grittier than them. But so as for the favorite in the East, I would say the Celtics, sadly. I really, really, really hate to say that. But my favorite out of the West, now this is such an interesting division. You see it on Nate's shirt. I was a little bit skeptical of that team, but goddamn, they got Michael Jordan's son. So it makes it hard to assess, The Thunder made them. I mean, I was told that they were the weakest first seed in forever, and they just butt wiped the Pelicans. The Nuggets, classic Nuggets fashion, they're just so good. They're just so good together. And then the Timberwolves, Nate might not like it, he might like it, but I feel like they're the Knicks of the West. I feel like that team is newer, and that team is they have that same type of thing. Like they have they have the top guy, but they have really good supporting cast. But I just feel like they're not totally battle tested.
Tom Thibodeau has touched both of them. Both
has-
touched by Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah. So to assess the Western Conference, it's really hard because all favorites are playing very good, but then you also have the Mavericks who can be that team. But if I'm gonna put my word out there and say who's gonna be in the NBA Finals, I think that the Nuggets are gonna go back just off of that. I feel like the Timberwolves could beat them. I'm not gonna say they're not, but as of now, the way that I look at it, I feel like the Nuggets are gonna be the team to beat.
I
Let
would
me
just. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
let me float a scenario out to you. Let's say that we get the ideal conference finals in both sides, all right? And I'm assuming the ideal for you, Abdullah, would be the Knicks and anyone but the Celtics. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say it's still 3-2 within the Cavs, correct?
Yeah.
Let's say you got a Cavs Knicks Eastern Conference Finals, and you have a Clippers Timberwolves, not Clippers, Mavericks Timberwolves Western Conference Finals. Now we know who both of you would want to make it out of that series. Who do you think would?
Knicks and Mavs, in my opinion.
Okay. Nate,
Who do I think would?
who do you think would?
I mean, you're gonna call it bias, but it's Knicks Wolves, in my opinion.
I mean,
I could
assessing that
explain.
Mavs, assessing that Mavs and Timberwolves matchups, they're like it could go either way.
I have my reasoning on why it's not a bias pick. If you would like to hear it.
Mhm.
Run it down for us.
So here's the thing. There is a clear best player in that series, and that is Luka Doncic. He's the
I agree.
best player in basketball right now,
Yeah.
my opinion. And so, and you have Kyrie Irving, who I saw a very, very good, intriguing, but I kind of agree with it a little bit comment. Earlier on the post of the Mavericks destroying the Clippers in Game 5, and it was on the Clippers. You got three of the guys that you do not want to have in the playoffs. Where on the Mavericks, you got two of the guys that you want on your team come playoff time.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously that's talking about Luka and Kyrie. Kyrie is a playoff riser. He is battle tested. He's got that ring. He's got that experience. And more importantly, he's got that wisdom. And he can help young players because there are some younger players on that team. Derek Lively getting good minutes, just to name one. And so, yeah, you got two really good playoff performers who not only elevate their game, elevate their team's game. If you look at the Dallas Mavericks on paper, it's a good team. It's a good team, but not a great team. It's not a great team on paper. If just on a quick rundown of the players, maybe not too flattering. Obviously, I've said that they rise, and that's definitely true. But here is why I think the Timberwolves are the better, would get the advantage in that series. Probably the smallest detail of the ones on my list is that they would have the home court advantage, which you think's what gives. What Target Center? Oh my God! This city, specifically fans of this franchise, which hasn't done shit in their existence, at least not since 2004. They are hungry and they are loud. I didn't go to any of the games because tickets are expensive, but I watched all the two home games against Phoenix, and my God, that place was packed and that place was loud. And I think that having the home court advantage is really a big deal when you got a fan base that's really, really, really looking for, in this scenario, a finals appearance. Are you kidding me? The Timberwolves couldn't even dream of that in their franchise's history. Number 2 is the Timberwolves matchups. The Wolves have found a way to make 2 7-footers in a starting lineup work. No one thought they could, especially after last season's it just didn't work. It didn't work. That's the truth. This year they found a way to make it work. The spacing is right, and it's been a big, big reason on why they are the number 1 defense. Far and by gone.
I don't necessarily think they made it work. I think that Anthony Edwards coming into his own is what makes the Timberwolves good, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. It's
I
not
agree.
the sole reason, for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely not.
But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. I get what you're saying, and I would agree. But the thing is that the Timberwolves matchups with the Dallas Mavericks is just ideal for the Timberwolves because, I mean, outside of they have the Mavericks have Max Keebler, and then they have Derek Lively, who's a rookie, and when the lights are going to be the brightest, can a rookie step up? I think that the paint is going to be locked down and secure. They have a really good defender, lengthy defender in Jaden McDaniels, who booked against the Suns, big 3. Sometimes he was on Booker, sometimes he was on Durant. Booker and Durant are going to get their own, but he did a good job of limiting the explosiveness. So I think Jaden McDaniels put him on Luka. It's not going to hold him to 15 points. Luka will score. But his length and his IQ might disrupt some decision-making and passing of Luka. And then Anthony Edwards is a great defender. He might be put on Kyrie, just for example. And so I think the matchups are just in the favor of the Wolves because of their size, their defensive capabilities, and stuff like that. And then the third reason, and probably the most important reason in my eyes, and why I think the Wolves have a matchup over 30, or have a matchup advantage over 30 of the 32 teams. I'm dumb. 28 of the 30 teams in the NBA is because of their depth. The Timberwolves have a solid bench, and they have some dogs that can come off the bench and just start cooking you. Nickeil Alexander-Walker will come off the bench and shove 5 threes down your throat on occasion. Naz Reid, 6th man of the year, will come off the bench, and that's another center that they can throw you. That's more size, something that maybe the Mavericks have a little bit of a less of. And then you got plenty of other guys like Jordan McLaughlin, Kyle Anderson, who is a little bit more of a vet. And so I just think the Wolves, and we saw it against the Sun, they can keep rotating, they can keep throwing guys at you. Players like Cat and Gobert, when they got in foul trouble against the Suns, they were able to sit. And the Wolves didn't suffer too much from them having to sit because they were in foul trouble, because they have guys who came up and stepped up and at least filled some of the roles. So I rambled for a bit. That's true. It's my team. I'm passionate. But that's why I think that the Wolves have a matchup. And that's why I like this Denver series, and it's going to be a really good series, is because these are 2 really good teams. I've seen a lot of people say that, whoever wins this series is going to represent the West in the finals. I don't buy into that completely, but I see the reasoning behind it.
It's not ridiculous to say that.
No.
It's going to be cinema, man. I am nervous.
Well, okay. I do wonder, and I feel like a lot of people are, I mean, I'm a victim of this too, but just how good the Nuggets are and have been recently, it's just really hard to see another team beating them. But a lot of people are overlooking just how good that Suns team actually was, and how the Timberwolves just couldn't beat them in the first half or in the regular season. But this playoffs, that's a different hungry team, so I think they really can't be overlooked. But speaking of overlooked, it really bothers me that the Thunder are being this underlooked too.
Yeah, you're right.
Because if you want to talk about Timberwolves having depth, I think another team that has insane depth is the Thunder, and all their guys are 18 to 22. That's their age range.
God, yeah, they're gonna be good for years.
That team is going to be good. Maybe this is not their year, but I feel like they have that same thing with the Timberwolves in the sense that like their bench guys bring that they go they're a whole team together. Like all their interviews are as the whole entire team, not even just.
You love to see
So
it.
I do think that they could also be a team like that's going to represent. I feel like they could easily beat the Nuggets, beat the Timberwolves. They can also get easily beat by them.
For sure.
But enough of the lesser conference. You know what I mean? The Eastern Conference is where it's at in my opinion.
I do enjoy the Eastern Conference.
I do too.
We
I
Uh,
the interesting scenario to me though is that every every situation right now, the game's left over at 3-2. And the thing is, I think like I know for me at least, my automatic assumption is that every team that is up three is gonna win. It's not my assumption, but I'm more inclined to say that. But what if we get a little bit of a magic run? Because the Cavs Magic, they're gonna have whoever wins is gonna have a really tough matchup in the Celtics. I'm not even suggesting the Magic will beat the Celtics, but if they can take them to 6 or 7 games, and the Magic are extremely young, extremely fresh, green, as they say, like have no experience.
yeah.
I mean, are we and as the Cavs as well, are we getting foreshadowing on maybe the future of the Eastern Conference? Are the Cavs and Magic the future?
I think out of all the series that are at 3-2, I feel like the most likely ones are either the Knicks, Sixers, sadly, or the Cavs and Magic, because it doesn't seem the Cavs Magic side, those teams, they just can't separate. Every team has been able to win at home, but they haven't been able to win away. So I also feel like Orlando's going to bring it in Game 6, and that's going to be Game 7. It's the matter of they can protect home court in Game 6, but also they just kind of shut down when they go to Cleveland, and that is that experience that they don't have, and that's why I feel like it could actually maybe not go to 7 because I feel like the Cavs, they have that experience. I mean, they got bounced by the Knicks last year because we're just better than them. And that's not even to be like any hype. We just are. I mean,
Yeah.
But they are progressively getting better, like Liam said. Like this could be the future, especially for the Magic. I don't see them sitting at a 5 seed next year. I see them a little bit higher, actually. You know what I mean? Like they can only get better from here, pending contracts and stuff. But yeah, I definitely do think that like to win that series, you have to win on the road, and that goes for both teams.
The biggest problem for the Magic, bro. I didn't watch all the games. I've seen the final scores. I watched the last game though. The Magic are like you said, they're such a raw team. Jamal Mosley's an excellent coach. Third place coach of the year, absolutely deserved. The Magic just their problem is offense, and that's the thing that I was worried about with the Timberwolves heading into the playoffs. The reason Wolves lost the game is because offensive stagnance, and so the Magic, outside of like Banchero and the Wagner brothers, like, I mean, they don't have a lot of like true blood scorers. They have guys that can go off, but like the Magic are a pretty good defensive team, and if they can get hot on the offense, I could see them taking the Celtics to 6. For sure. But
I mean, dude,
speaking,
Banchero dropping 39 as a sophomore in the NBA, he's gonna be a stud, dude.
for sure. I was gonna say real quick, we're gonna interject our hot takes into this. I feel like, cue hot or not intro, whatever. I don't care. I'm pretty sure all of our hot takes are gonna be about the NBA. So let's just let's get them over with now. And I'm glad you bring up the Eastern Conference because mine resides in the Eastern Conference. And, the Eastern Conference right now, there are currently 3 series that sit at 3-2 right now. Cavs, Magic, Bucks, Pacers, Knicks, Sixers. And so there's a little bit of parity, and it's still a bit of a toss-up in the East. And so my hot take is And Abdullah, I'm sorry, you're not gonna like me, but I think the Sixers force a game 7 in Philly. And here's the thing. Well, here's the reason why. The Knicks are the better team. I personally think that the Knicks are more talented, and I think the Knicks are going to advance. I think they win a game 7 in MSG. However, the Sixers are still a really good team. I mean, it's a little bit different from the team they had last year, but this is the team that was up there in the 2 seed until Joel Embiid got hurt, and then they slowly just trickled down and found themselves in the play-in. And that's, ideal because they still have Joel Embiid and they still have Tyrese Maxey, who is on the rise. And I think they got a bit of momentum from that exciting win in Game 5. And I think it's going to be in Philly. I don't think the Knicks are going to overtake Philly again. That was crazy. The amount of Knicks fans in Philly, that was crazy. I don't think it's nearly as much of a problem this time. And I think that it's going to be a tough battle, as all the games have been. And I think the Sixers will force a game 7 just to lose an MSG to Jalen Brunson.
I'm going to give you a 3.
I give it a 2.
I give them a 3 because I can't give you a 5 because it isn't Philly, and they could easily show out. But I give you a 3 because, like you said, the Knicks are better. But I don't agree with the thing that Philly's not going to be taking over again because it's a Knicks elimination game, meaning if they win, they're going to the next round, and New Yorkers don't want to miss that, especially if it's just a subway right away. So, this is a 3 for me.
I could dig that. Liam, you want to explain it all, or?
Yeah, I'll say with 2 just because home court advantage, hit me, and it is always an advantage. But that could be like the advantage could be dwindled by the amount of Knicks fans that are there. But I don't think that it's crazy at all to see this series go to Game 7 and then the Knicks to win at home. So it's just like it seems pretty reasonable, especially with the way the last game ended, to force another game. I can absolutely see that happening.
All right, guys. I kind of have a steamy one.
Ooh.
Depending on how you see things. Okay? The Milwaukee Bucks are going to advance in the series. They're going to Pacers.
Ooh,
And
baby.
here is why. First off, they played at home. We just talked about home court advantage, and they beat the brakes off of the Pacers a little bit. And now this game, Game 6, is going to be in Indiana. But what I'm saying about that is that I feel like the Pacers, outside of Siakam and sometimes Halliburton, they're not as good as they can be. Meaning, like, they're very vulnerable, and I like this Bucks team without Dame, without Giannis, has been able to keep in games for the most part, except for in the fourth quarter. And I'm going to give it up to experience. I'm a big experience guy, and that Milwaukee team won a championship 2 years ago, and a lot of those guys are still on that team. So I think that they're going to force a Game 6 and then potentially get either Dame and or Giannis back for that Game 7 in advance. And then, they'll be back. But I feel like the really big chop up is this Game 6 is that because I feel like this might be their final game without their stars. And the way that last game went, they controlled it. And I feel like they're better defensively than the Pacers. They're better offensively sometimes than the Pacers. And I feel like they can ride that wave into a semifinal appearance.
I'm actually going to go 3.5, not 4, because you make some really good points there at the end. I'm very, very, I was very quick to put up 4 because it was a 3-1 series lead, which is almost insurmountable. And then, they just haven't had their stars, and I don't know what Dame's status is for Game 6. Well, I lower it because these Bucks have momentum, and if Dame plays, let alone if Giannis plays, it might be wraps because the Pacers genuinely looked awful in Game 5. Like, they genuinely looked really bad. They got their brakes blown off them by a Dame and Giannis-less Bucks. It wasn't a close game. They got destroyed.
I mean, Bobby Portis is dropping 29. That's a problem.
Exactly, bro. Chris Middleton is going crazy. And so, I lower it to 3.5. because the Bucks have lots of momentum, and if one, let alone two of their best players in the NBA come back, it might be Rabs.
Mhm.
So your take is Stars come back, they force Game 7, they win, they make a finals run?
They could possibly. I feel like they were going to have trouble with my Knicks.
Yeah. His
Are
take
you
is that they
including-
advance.
But
Okay,
but my take is that they just advance to the next round past the Pacers.
Okay, I'm giving it a 3. Then I agree with everything Nate said. And I know that was the biggest question mark in the beginning of the series is like, can the Bucks hold out long enough to get healthy? And they are one game away from doing so, and I would absolutely see that happening. So yeah, I could rock with 3.
I'm gonna give you a little bonus here, Abdul. I don't want a 3.25. That's gross. So I'm gonna raise it to a 4 and give you a nice 3.5.
Okay.
Just because it's a 3-1 lead and Game 6 in Indiana is going to be
Facts. They're like Hollywood right now. They got Caitlin Clark up in there. They got playoff basketball.
You made a very good point, bro, about Halliburton. Sometimes Halliburton has low key for the hype you get, and for this team at one point being the best offense in the NBA.
Yeah.
They look scared, or at least last game they looked shook. They look like hesitant. No one's driving. No one's taking open shots, and they're like way too conservative.
Where's
That's
that
not what
in-season
got them to
tournament
this
energy?
point.
That in-season tournament energy was wasted.
All right, I will take us back to the Western Conference.
Okay.
I don't want to underestimate the Thunder, obviously, but again, the term of being maybe a little too green comes in because this specific squad of the Thunder, I don't think any of their starting 5 has seen a playoff appearance.
Shy when he was really young, but that was
That's right, with the Clippers. Okay.
Gordon Hayward.
Other than that, this team is inexperienced, very young. Even Shy, who's been in the league for several years, is still pretty young.
Yeah.
But the Mavericks, who, it appears that they have a very good chance to win this series currently. And like you said, Abdullah, Luka in an elimination game is a different animal. My hot take is that the Mavericks advance to the Thunder and beat them in 6 or 7 to go to the conference finals.
Beat Thunder, you said in 6 or 7?
Or 7, yes.
Do you want to include that in your take?
No less than
or just
6
to beat
games.
them?
No less than 6.
Okay,
games.
so 6. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Abdul here. I'm gonna say 3. Here, like the reason why is because you're right. The Thunder are very green. They're very young, and I think about it. Yeah, they don't have any playoff experience on that team. Obviously, they have the Coach of the Year. They have an MVP finalist, and a very deep roster, like we said earlier. And like the thing is against the Pelicans, like I expected the Pelicans. Obviously, the Pelicans are without Zion, but I expected the Pelicans to grab like one game, especially like my mentality after that game 1, where it was this close, was like, ooh, this Thunder team, that youth is showing, But then the next 3 games, they just destroyed them. Next 3 games, it didn't even look close. And the truth is, it was a team effort. And now that's the Pelicans. This is the Mavs we're talking about, who are a lot different of a team. I think 3 because A, I'm confident the Mavs are going to advance, and B, that will be a 6 or 7 game series, and I just think the Mavs have the upper hand because they both have MVP finalists, and so the best player in the series I think is still Luka, and the truth is like I said about Kyrie and how he elevates the team and stuff like that. The experience will catch up to them when they play a fully healthy, good team like the Mavs.
Yeah.
So,
I'm giving you a 3 for kind of the same reason, but I'm going for more of that. The Thunder, to my recent thing, the Thunder are they got a deep roster, but they are young. And the Mavs kind of have the opposite, where they're mostly old. and most of the players have been in the playoffs and they play together and stuff, except for like, of course, like Lively or Washington. But I also am going to add that I think the Mavs have the first and the third best players in that series. I think that goes Luka and then Shea and then Kyrie. I think that the combo, and then also Shea's not the greatest defender. He's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna be able to guard Kyrie. And then no one on that team can guard Luka. It's just a stylistic nightmare kind of for the Thunder a little bit. Even as a one seed, even as a team that like wiped through and played really well, I feel like I don't know what happens to the Mavs, man, but they never have a boring series. They never lay down. And I feel like with a team that's a little bit young, they're gonna, maybe instead of just like keeping it close, they're gonna, try to, actually try to go win. I mean, they went to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So it's a team that has been there. And then they have Luka Doncic, man. Like he's almost averaging a triple double, and this is not even like his best shooting splits. Like he's unguardable. And they had Kyrie, who is top 5 point guard of all time. So
Yeah. The thing about like everyone's saying, like I feel like in the Western Conference, seeding is almost irrelevant because of how close it was
yeah,
throughout the entire year. And I mean specifically at the finish line. Like yeah, like the Mavericks, I mean they were 7 games back of the Thunder. Um and like the Thunder, yes, they're the 1 seed, so textbook they would be the best team in the West.
Uh-huh.
But they barely got that. They got that by a half game tiebreaker.
yeah.
And so to call them the best team in the West just because there's a 1 next to their name, I don't know if you can do that. I still think that, in my opinion, they're the third best team in the West, but the outcomes and the regular season matchups, it's different. This is the playoffs.
Yeah. It's playoff Luka, baby.
Yeah, playoff Luka, playoff Kyrie, and
Also, can we get a big rest in peace or moment of silence for playoff Jimmy? We never saw his return. So sad.
that would have made that series watchable. It would have made the series watchable.
I know.
Instead, we have to watch Tyler Hero play like he is playoff Jimmy.
Bam Adebayo played great tonight, but they were already down. They're down by 30 by the time.
Doesn't matter. Derek White is the greatest basketball player on this planet.
I should have had him as my who's balling low key though. Like God,
Derek White.
he went bald. He went bald, and then he turned into Jordan.
Maybe that's the trick.
Yeah.
Quickly, just kind of going back to like just general playoff talk.
Mhm.
What first round series has or was, considering a lot of some of them are done, was the most exciting, most fun to watch?
I'm gonna be biased here, but I think Knicks Sixers.
I could see that. That was very
I
exciting.
mean,
Lot of
you
drama.
can make the case for the 2-game winners in Jamal Murray, but it was a 4-1 series. The Knicks Sixers is still ongoing. We've had a Tyrese Maxey half-court shot to tie the game. We've had a Jalen Brunson 40-point game in Philly to close out the Sixers. We've had a DiVincenzo game winner. Like, just every game has been so tightly knit. So I feel like that's my
And a lot of controversy, especially with some of the officiating, with Embiid's flagrant play.
dude. He is the
And these
dirtiest
two
player
fan
ever.
bases, are not only toxic as shit, they hate each other.
Yeah.
And so it's almost a match made in heaven kind of series. I mean, yeah, out of the East, that was my pick. Because I'm not going to lie, Cavs versus Magic might be the second least interesting series behind Celtics Heat. But, like, the East is just like, it's just
Well, actually,
not bad.
I'm gonna say that Timberwolves Suns is probably the most boring, only because it was just
Well,
not
not for
close.
me, but, like,
It just wasn't. It just was not close.
That's true. Like that's the thing. That's why like you could say that the swept series were like not that interesting because they were sweeps. And I mean, although they have exciting, electrifying players on the teams like Edwards and Shy,
Mhm.
you know, even if you weren't like a Suns fan, it's like still like the games themselves were like wow, like they were amazing, but they weren't necessarily intriguing. My best series, I could definitely see the Knicks Sixers one. I definitely see that. That's for sure. I'm gonna go Clippers Mavs though because just I feel like there is not in this playoffs so far. In the first round, I feel like there is not a more even matchup than that one. Now, of course, we've seen, there's been blowouts like today. The Mavs just blew them out by 30, and even last game where the Clippers almost choked it, but they were ahead by 30 at some point. But the thing is that scoreboard aside, this is probably the most even matchup in the NBA playoffs. And so I have, every time it's been on, I've turned it on because
Yeah.
it's exciting and it's fun to see these. I mean, I guess you could say vets like Harden, PG, Kawhi when he plays. And then on the other side, like Kyrie, Luka turn into their playoff forms and kind of see where they're going because these guys aren't going to be around much longer. They're getting older. Luka will be here for a while. But like, especially that retirement home of a Clippers roster is like, we're seeing some MVPs and dogs of the past. We're seeing what they still got, and it's not going to be much because they're getting towards the end of their careers. Liam, what do you think's been the most interesting series? And to answer your question, the Celtics Heat.
I found that really exciting, personally. All I'm saying is the Celtics have beat their Joker. Okay, that probably
Their Joker
the
didn't play.
probably the team in the East that I was the most worried about. But when we go to the West, I mean, I agree with everything you said. Clippers, Mavs. I don't think there's been a better series of all the series like that are 3-2 right now. I Clippers and Mavs might be like the most likely to go to 7. Just because how the momentum is shifting from night to night. But we'll see. We'll see if Luka's really him.
Which he probably will be.
For my hot take sake, I hope he is, but we will see.
If you guys would not mind, Abdullah had his moment, and I'm gonna have mine real quick. Just real quick. I'll make it quick. I've been rambling a lot. If you guys would not mind, I would like to talk about my Pookie, my king, my goat, the future face of the league. And that is number 5.
Jalen Brunson.
Yep.
He is not number. Anthony Edwards is pretty clear cut my number 3 favorite athlete of all time. No one's
he
gonna
moved
top.
up.
No one's gonna top Curry. Jefferson is.
I can top Curry.
I mean, bro. Just Anthony Edwards is obviously he's a good player, but both this year and last year, the way he plays and elevates in the playoffs is insane. One point of emphasis is Anthony Edwards' biggest problem during this year's regular season. He got better as a defender. He obviously was our leading scorer. His problem was inconsistency. Some nights he would go for 50. Other nights he would not be on the stat sheet and just missing everything. One of the biggest areas he was most inconsistent from was 3-point land. That man had a streak towards the end of the season of like 15 straight misses from 3 or something like that. And that was going across 2 games. I mean, the man could not hit a 3. We know his mid-range game's great. We know he's excellent at the rim. He's a highlight machine. Man could not hit a 3. And it was sometimes shooting us out of games, and I like to admit. But this series, I have never been more amazed. I have not been this amazed by a single player since 2015 Stephen Curry. And so, or no, sorry, let me change that. Since 2022 Stephen Curry. Fuck you, Liam.
I mean, I've seen like 2018.
since 2022. Okay, 18 LeBron was good too, but obviously I was rooting against him. He is just some of these shots he makes are from Steph Curry, right? I mean, there was those he like would make a run. He would like run into a pull-up 30-something footer and just nail it. He had I think seven 3-pointers in that game 4. He is scoring like we've never seen him score before. And if he can just translate this to his real game, I have no doubt he'll be MVP favorite next season. He is this team. He's what this poverty franchise has needed since Kevin Garnett left. And he is the reason. I can talk about the depth, the defense, the coaching. He is the reason the Wolves swept the Suns and are in position to have a really good postseason.
But
Number
what will
5?
he do? But what will he do when he has Murray right
Money right in front of him.
Murray right in front of him?
Man, I'm gonna be.
I'm excited to see the second round. Hopefully, the Knicks can get there next tomorrow night. We'll see what happens with the Clippers and the Bucks and all them. But the playoffs they're in full effect and they have not been disappointing. So I just can't wait to see what happens next.
And just like not disappointing, Take Two, episode 10, episodes 1 through 9, we don't disappoint.
Ooh, no, we
Just like
don't.
the
Ballers.
Just like to thank everyone who's listening in, who's watching, whatever platform you're listening to. As long as you're here, you're the family or community. I think we had a very solid episode. We obviously have a lot to say. We like to yap a little bit, but there's nothing wrong with that. We all have our own
Be more consistent. We have a lot more time.
Hey, I'm back. We back. Stay tuned for some in-person stuff, because it's gonna happen. We are not going to be on Zoom if we don't have to be. We like it. We know that it's gonna enhance the conversation and the yapping so much more if we're right next to each other. So
holding hands.
absolutely.
With that being said, episode 10 is a wrap. That is Nate repping his Pookie Bear in the middle. Down low is Abdullah with his Pookie Bear behind him. I don't have my Pookie with me right now.
More like Poopy Bear.
Yeah. Kill me,
Alright.
Poopy.
Fuck you. But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We, as always, are Take Two.
See you next time. Radios, Wolves back, baby.